Trapped 360 feet underwater in a freezing metal box, a submersible and its crew face a deadly situation. Oxygen is running out, and the extreme cold is creeping in. They struggle to breathe as carbon dioxide builds up in the confined space. There is no escape and no rescue in sight. This is the terrifying real-life ordeal that unfolded over more than 30 hours as a submersible crew fought for every shallow breath. The Johnson Sea Link is not just any submersible, a state-of-the-art vessel, a marvel of technology designed to explore the deep sea. Today's dive is supposed to be quick and simple, just an hour of work in relatively shallow waters. The crew is going to dive down to the wreck of a Navy destroyer intentionally sunk off the coast of Key West, Florida, to create an artificial reef. Once they get there, the mission is to locate a fish trap on the ocean floor, retrieve it, and then return to the surface. At the helm is Archibald "Jock" Menzies, a calm and collected pilot with over 100 dives under his belt. Alongside him is marine biologist Robert Meek. Together, they're sitting in the front compartment of the submersible, a 5-foot acrylic bubble designed for observation and ocean mapping. This unique compartment offers a panoramic view of the underwater world and is insulated to maintain a more stable, warmer temperature during longer dives. The rear compartment houses veteran divers Edwin Clayton Link and Albert "Smokey" Stover, a seasoned expert. This section of the sub is made of aluminum and has been designed for lockout diving, allowing the divers to adjust to ocean pressure and exit the vessel to carry out tasks while underwater. But unlike the acrylic bubble, the aluminum hull provides little insulation, which makes the rear much colder as the sub descends to greater depths. The only connection between the two compartments is a small window and an intercom system for communication. Stover and Link are only wearing shorts and t-shirts, thinking they won't need warmer clothing since they don't plan on leaving the sub during the short dive. Meek, however, warns them that it will be cold down there. But they don't react, not realizing that the chilling temperatures will soon play a crucial role in their fight for survival. On the deck of the surface support vessel, the team gathers to watch the launch of the mini-sub. Among them is Edwin Link. He's the father of the younger Link and designed the submersible. As they prepare for the dive, a training pilot performs routine pre-launch checks. During his inspection, he notices the carbon dioxide or CO2 scrubber isn't working in the pilot's cabin. But this isn't brought to Menzies' attention until he is seated inside the acrylic bubble, ready to begin the dive. The scrubber uses canisters of a berylline chemical to absorb carbon dioxide, making it safe to breathe. Without it, CO2 could build up to dangerous levels, slowly suffocating the crew. Menzies, trusting his experience after over 100 dives, checks the airflow and the backup scrubber fan. Confident that it will keep the air breathable, he decides to move forward, even though there's no way to check the CO2 levels in the pilot's compartment. At 8:36 a.m., the Sea Link begins its slow descent. The waters off of Key West are deceptively calm, and the submersible descends smoothly. Minutes later, they reach a depth of 340 feet. The visibility below is poor, with murky water and dim lights making it difficult to see clearly. By 9:04 a.m., they finally catch a sight of the wreckage's anchor chain. As the sub approaches the destroyer's wreck, they locate the fish trap resting on the tangled remains of the warship. Using the sub's robotic arm, they reach for the trap. But as they want to pull away from the wreck, a steel cable catches on the sub's hull. At first, the crew doesn't realize what has happened. Menzies attempts to move forward, but it won't budge. The sub is trapped, tangled in the cables of the old destroyer. Despite his best efforts, the 6 small electric motors that power it can't free it from the wreckage. At 9:53 a.m., the crew alerts the support vessel that they are trapped, and a distress call goes out shortly afterward. They report that while trapped, they are in no immediate danger. By their calculations, the crew has about 42 hours of breathable air in the pilot's compartment and 61 hours in the diver's cabin. About 5 hours later, a Navy rescue ship stationed at Key West is dispatched to help, making the 4 trapped men confident they will be freed soon. They don't know that time isn't on their side. The crew's air calculations assume the scrubbers will work at average temperatures, but as the cold sets in, their estimates become dangerously optimistic. They debate via intercom whether Link and Stover should attempt a lockout dive and manually free the Sea Link from the wreckage. But the dangers of such a dive at 360 feet are immense. At that depth, the effects of deep diving can cloud judgment and slow movements, making even simple tasks dangerous. The cold can cause hypothermia within minutes, and the heavy pressure makes breathing difficult. It will be a death wish. As time passes and the temperature in the rear compartment drops to 45 degrees Fahrenheit, the barrel line fails to absorb CO2 as quickly. The effects start to show as the dangerous gases build up, turning every breath into a slow threat. Stover and Link's hands grow numb, their muscles stiff, and each breath becomes a struggle, not just from the toxic air, but the cold that has left them nearly immobile. Every movement is agonizing. As the cold becomes an enemy they simply can't fight. Meanwhile, the crew on the surface have since revised their estimate, lowering the remaining air in the sub to just 24 hours. The longer they are trapped, the worse the situation becomes. After nearly 7 hours of the submersible being trapped, the Navy rescue ship finally arrives. Rescue teams scramble to reach the trapped sub, but pinpointing its location takes them some time. The divers struggle through the strong Gulf Stream currents and wreckage to get close to the Sea Link, but the area is a tangled mess of steel and debris. Try as they might, they just can't seem to reach the sub. Meanwhile, Menzies and Meek are doing their best to keep the CO2 levels in check in the forward compartment. Desperate, the two pour the CO2-absorbing chemical into a t-shirt, holding it up to the fans to help circulate fresh air. The insulated acrylic bubble allows this makeshift solution to work, temporarily. However, the scrubber has stopped working entirely in the rear compartment. CO2 is now building up at a deadly rate. Despite switching to oxygen masks to help with breathing, it isn't enough. The cold has rendered them almost immobile, their bodies betraying them in the fight for survival. They are entering the early stages of hypercapnia, a condition where too much carbon dioxide builds up in the bloodstream. It causes headaches, then dizziness, confusion, and eventually convulsions. On the surface, Link Sr. is watching as precious time slips away, knowing that the situation is growing more desperate with every passing minute. Around midnight, a second dive brings the rescuers even closer, within 10 feet of the trapped submersible, but they are blocked again by the mess of cables. Meanwhile, one diver attempts to swim to the Sea Link, but he is no match for the strong currents. Efforts using another small sub also fail due to sonar issues. Around 1 a.m. on the next day, after being trapped for 16 hours, Menzies reports to the surface that Link and Stover are suffering from convulsions. The CO2 levels have spiked so high that Link and Stover's bodies are shutting down. They slip into unconsciousness, and then silence. Their voices never to be heard through the internal intercom again. After 20 hours underwater, a diving bell from the Navy vessel is deployed, but it gets tangled in the debris, preventing another rescue attempt. As hopes begin to fade, a research vessel equipped with a remote-controlled underwater camera arrives that afternoon. This is the lifeline the Sea Link desperately needed. The camera provides a clear view of the trapped sub for the first time, allowing rescuers to lower a grappling hook carefully. Using the camera as a guide, they manage to snag the sub with a hook, and with a single tug, the vessel is finally freed from the wreckage. At 4:53 p.m., after 31 hours underwater, the Johnson Sea Link finally surfaces. Menzies and Meek are quickly pulled to safety and rushed into a decompression chamber. They have survived their terrifying ordeal, protected by the insulated acrylic bubble that shielded them from the cold. But in the rear compartment, Link and Stover are silent. Their bodies can be seen through the small portholes of the sub, slumped over, motionless. The rear compartment is still pressurized, and it will take hours to safely depressurize it without causing further harm. The rescuers can do nothing but wait, knowing the two have already died. By the morning of June 19th, the compartment was finally opened, and the bodies recovered. The cause of death was listed as respiratory acidosis, the result of CO2 poisoning. They had suffocated slowly, trapped in the cold metal hull of the Sea Link, helpless, knowing that rescue was just out of reach. For Link Sr., it was a personal nightmare. A father forced to watch his son die in a vessel of his design. Over the next 2 years, he developed the Cabled Observation and Rescue Device, a crewless vehicle designed to free trapped submersibles and prevent future tragedies. The Sea Link continued its work for decades after the disaster, exploring the ocean and contributing to scientific breakthroughs. Watch this episode next if you found this video interesting. Please add a like and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.